almost the end of the series, the seven letters to the seven churches at the beginning of Revelation, Philadelphia. So here's our map that we've been familiar with over the last few months, and you'll see where we've been in Sardis last month and we're in Philadelphia. The very last one, of course, is Laodicea, right at the bottom of the map there. I went looking for some pictures of the ruins of Philadelphia, and there's not a lot. There's basically some pictures of these pillars, what appears to be two sides of what was an arch. And that's really the only photographs you can get. There's not really much of the city, the ancient city, left these days. Where the city was is now called a town by the name of Aleşehir. And apparently it was well known as being quite vulnerable to earthquakes. And so I believe that many people in the region chose to live out in the countryside rather than the city, because they saw the city as being quite a dangerous place potentially to live with, a great number of earthquakes happening. The name of the city, Philadelphia. Does anybody know what it means? It means brotherly love. Brotherly love. So it comes from two words, one which is phílos, beloved or dear, and we have that in the word philosophy, okay, to love wisdom, and adelphós is brother. Apparently there was an inscription found in the ruins which suggested that Philadelphia was founded at least as early as the 2nd century BC, during the reign of King Eumenes II of Pergamum. Now he named the city after his younger brother, Attalus II, who was called Philadelphus in honour of his love and loyalty to his brother, the king. So that's where the name comes from. As I read this letter, one of the frustrations I have as you go through various commentaries is many commentators on the Bible comment on the name, that it means brotherly love, and then that's it, they drop it. It's as though there's no significance, and perhaps I shouldn't be surprised, but it's one of the things I find quite hard about reading the various Christian commentaries. For Swedenborg and the new church, the name of the city is so important in terms of understanding its meaning. Now what I want to do is just note the difference between a physical brother and a spiritual brother. We've talked about this a little bit with the children this morning. We have to understand that we use this term brother more widely than just for our family. And we see this in that passage from Mark, where Jesus says, "For whoever does the will of God is my brother and my sister and my mother." So there's two things I just want to mention about that. When we call someone a brother, it often is by virtue of a shared truth, a shared understanding. But the reality is actually those who are truly our brothers are, as Jesus said, those who do the will of God. It's more about practice, it's more about affection and love than it is about understanding. And that's an important thing to bear in mind. This is why Swedenborg talks about charity as being what is represented by brotherhood. And when we talk about charity and we talk about the neighbour, it's not about the person, it's about the qualities within them. The neighbour in the spiritual sense is not every man, but it is that which is with man. Everyone loves another, not for the sake of his person, but for the sake of what is with him. This is the ground of all friendship, all favour, and all honour. So the neighbour, rather than being an individual person, is actually the qualities that person contains. It is the good within a person that is really and truly the neighbour. It is what is within. And that's the same. The same is true of the brother. It is what is within, the qualities within, that makes a brother, or a sister indeed. Now, Swedenborg talks about Philadelphia as representing the faith of charity. The faith of charity. Now, if we backtrack a month or so ago, we talked about the evil of falsity and the falsity of evil. I wonder if you remember about that, just very briefly. So the evil of falsity is where we have a misunderstanding about a principle which then leads us to do something we should not. Okay, that's the evil of falsity, the evil that derives from falsity. The other way around, the falsity of evil, is when we have an evil desire seated in our heart which leads us then to see the world in a particular way. It distorts our view of reality because we protect the evil within us. That's the falsity of evil. So when we then come to this phrase, the faith of charity, it's the clarity of vision which comes from a life of good, a life of seeking to do what is good. That's the faith of charity. Now, when we come back to the name Philadelphia, there's one other place in the Bible where a very, very similar word is used, and it's in the first epistle of Peter, chapter 3, and it's a lovely little section which I'd just like to read to you. Peter writes, "Finally, all of you be of one mind, having compassion for one another. Love as brothers. Be tender-hearted, be courteous, not returning evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, blessing, knowing that you were called to this, that you may inherit a blessing. For he who would love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayers. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil." Now, I just wanted then to connect this idea of charity, with another feature of this letter, and I wonder if you spotted it as we read it, the connection to name. Name is mentioned a number of times through this passage. Now, so especially at the end, it said, "He who overcomes, I will write on him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and I will write on him my new name." When we talk about name, what we mean is a quality. It's to give expression to something within. I just want to take you back to the two great commandments. Jesus said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul and with all your mind." This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbour as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Now that little sentence in the middle, "and the second is like it," is something we pass over so quickly. But what I want to say about it is that when Jesus said, "and the second is like it," what I believe he means is that the love of the neighbour is an expression of the love of God. And in the same way, the name is an expression of the thing being referred to, the inner quality. So to be given a name is to be expressing that quality in our lives. Many people look at the book of Revelation and they look at a number of passages, actually. I was surprised how many. Chapters 13, 14, 15, 16, 19 and 20 all talk about the mark of the beast. Are you familiar with that idea? And many churches kind of obsess over what the mark of the beast might be. Well, here is the opposite. The name of the Lord being written on a person. This is the mark of the Lord. You can see how important this idea is. And the thing is, we talked last week about baptism. It's not a physical mark. It's a spiritual one. It's this expression of what the Lord seeks to implant in our lives. To write is to commit to paper anything from the memory, thought, or mind. That is, to be preserved. In the spiritual sense, therefore, it signifies that which is to endure in man's life, inscribed on it and implanted in it. And then talking specifically about the things being inscribed. The acknowledgement of the Lord's divine in his human, and making the truths of the word to be of one's life. No one can be in the one unless he is at the same time in the other. To acknowledge the Lord's divine in his human is to make the truths of the word to be of one's life. One of the other things that occurs to me about this book is its place in the sequence of the seven. The second last. Yet it is the best church, isn't it? If we read it literally, Philadelphia it's the one we all want to be. It's the one we want to be part of. Because Philadelphia is protected from the tribulations to come. It's praised by the Lord. So why is it second last? Why isn't it last? And we've been thinking about these books as a process, and it's easy to think, surely it should be the end of the process. Well, there's a reason it's not, I think, and I'll kind of wait for it until next time. But I just want to refer to the creation story. How many days in the creation story? 7. Something is created on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Day 7 is a day of rest. Yet without it, the creation story is not complete. So we've had this building up to day 6, and then there's day 7, the day of rest, which completes the process. So I want you just to hang on to that. That may well be the reason why Philadelphia is the 6th, because we've worked to this point in the process. There is another step to come, but it looks like we've made it. It looks like it's complete. We are complete. But I do want to then just draw connections with the church, the letter to the church that's gone before and the one that comes after. So last month we talked about Sardis, and we look in Sardis and we find again this idea of name comes up. So it said in verse 4 of chapter 3, a few names in Sardis who have not defiled their garments. And the promise to Sardis is, I will not blot out his name from the book of life. There's another connection as well when it refers to that tribulation that's to happen in the world. The Lord says, behold, I come quickly. Where in Sardis, what's been written is this, therefore, if you will not watch, I will come upon you as a thief, and you will not know the hour I will come upon you. The sense I get there is this idea of coming quickly, coming unexpectedly, but in this case, there's that protection that the Lord offers us. And then what goes after? What's the connection with after? Well, I think it's the door. To Philadelphia, you have this idea of the open door. This is what connects with the vision of the Lord in chapter 1, where it says, I have the keys of Hades and of death. Then at the beginning of this letter, he who opens and no one shuts, shuts and no one opens. And the promise is, I have set before you an open door. In Laodicea, the door is closed. And it is the Lord who is standing and knocking on it. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. So far as the way from heaven is opened with man, so far he is affected by truth and becomes rational. That is, sees truth from the light of truth. Okay, the last thing I want to say about this book, we notice that it's generally a positive message, that there's praise is heaped upon the people of Philadelphia. There doesn't seem to be much in the way of warning, but there is warning. So we have in verse 11 the urge to hold fast what you have, that no one may take your crown. And then we have the promise, he who overcomes, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. I will write on him the name of my God. But just notice it does say, he who overcomes. So we get to this state, we get to this sixth day of creation. We've seemingly done all of our work, we've made it in a sense, but it's not absolutely set in stone. We have to continue working. We have to continue paying attention. We have to continue welcoming the Lord into our lives. And I think that is probably the thing that I learned from Philadelphia more than anything else. That we may feel that our salvation is assured, but yet we are still urged to continue to work.